The diamond drop.
Welcome, Igniters! I'm your host, Michelle Quevedo, and I'm just so thankful to have you. Look who's with me, Mr. Rex Steven Sikes. But we are going to give you a glimpse of Rex Steven Sikes that perhaps you may not know a lot about because he doesn't always talk about himself. But before we do that, why don't we learn a little more about Rex Steven Sikes?
It is said that self-mastery is a lifetime pursuit, and Rex Steven Sikes has definitely dedicated a significant amount of his life training and mentoring on how transformation is done. With over 4 decades of experience helping thousands of people transform their minds and lives, Rex has worked tirelessly as a professional speaker, life mentor, business consultant, and educator. And if that isn't enough, Rex is also a SAG-AFTRA actor, filmmaker, and consultant to the entertainment industry. He is also renowned for conducting online programs on transformation, law of attraction, NLP, as well as teaching at packed public events, of which many of the most notable motivational speakers and trainers learn foundation and advanced education through his venues. He is a prolific writer, best known for his best-selling and life-changing book, Life on Your Terms. He is a respected trainer of whole brain and accelerated learning and is founder of the widely popular IDEA seminars. He is a master trainer of NLP and DHE, a master hypnotherapist, a master hypnotist, a TV talk show host of All Things Rex program, and now on Ignite Your Essence TV talk show. Rex Steven Sikes, welcome.
Wow, I am so pleased to be here. That was marvelous. You made me look good somehow. I don't know how you did it, but you did. That's fantastic.
Do you remember back in the 70s, early 80s, Rex, when they had that show, This Is Your Life? When we were putting this together, you have such a prolific history of serving, giving, writing, creating, that I literally was saying, gosh, guys, this is like a This Is Your Life Rex Sikes. But you're not done, are you?
Not at the least, no.
Well, as we talked about Buckminster Fuller, he talks about that we have the capability of living to 140. Of course, there's certain things that apply. And Rex, I truly believe that about you because it's important, the work that you do. But before we move on a little about that, we just shared a lot about you in a very concise package, but I'd like to kind of pull that away. You are an expert. You're a master at all things mindset training. That's how I describe you to people. And you have consulted with big companies, with groups, with individuals, people who really love transformation. How did this start? Did you have an issue in your life that you wanted to transform from, or were you always curious since you were a child?
Wow, many. But let me first say that I'm humbled to be here. I'm honored to be here. Anytime I get to share space with you, Michelle, I am a better person for that.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
you are
Thank you.
a leader in your own right, and you do so many incredible and wonderful things. So I sit at your feet as well, and I certainly
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you. And the team that you have working for you is just absolutely incredible. The work that they do behind the scenes and to make things happen. Wow. So thank you. I write about it in my book. People have bugged me for years to write and to be autobiographical, and I don't really talk about myself. And there's a reason for that, because I want to focus on the work and what's important for people who are interested in transformation to be able to transform. And while my story may be relevant to some, it has nothing to do really with what they are there for. I share my story in the book briefly. I'll share it here in just a second. But my point is, I don't spend, 20 minutes talking about myself and 2 minutes talking about transformation. I'd rather spend 22 minutes talking about transformation. So, and in this case, we'll have to do maybe, 20, 21 and a half. But I was a weird kid. I grew up in a middle-class home. Everything was cool. I was raised Catholic. I thought that the priest had some kind of mystical connection with God. So I asked my mom at 6 or 7 to read me, the books that we had in the house, like Khalil Gibran and the Bhagavad Gita and different Eastern and Western mystics and masters and Think and Grow Rich and different, And so that was my education. Saturday afternoons, we'd watch movies, and the other time, like before bed, she'd read me self-help books and motivational books and Eastern religion books, and you name it. And around 11, I got involved with hypnosis through my dentist, who was a practicing hypnotist and a stage hypnotist. I've been reading Napoleon Hill.
Excuse me, Rex. Did you say dentist? You had a dentist who was practicing hypnotism?
Yeah, because they would use hypnosis to extract teeth and do painless dentistry through hypnosis. This has been going on for eons, but
that has never been offered to me. It's always like, let me put this big needle in your mouth and knock you out, and then
they don't normally. I mean, they don't normally offer it. I don't know too many that offer it, but if somebody says I'd rather do hypnosis, sometimes they make provisions for that. Wow. But he was a hypnotist and a dentist, and used both, but separately and in his practice. And so he started teaching me hypnosis, and then I met a famous stage hypnotist who started to teach me that practice, which is significantly different from the practice of what we would call regular hypnosis or therapeutic hypnosis. And when it comes to hypnosis, just so you know, it's not difficult to get people into trance instantly or slowly or any of that. The biggest difficulty is waking people up from their everyday trances that they live in, that keep them limited and stuck, and not moving forward to kind of live the life that they deserve to live. So, hypnosis is better to wake people up, not to put people to sleep. And anyway, normal teenager, ups and downs, that kind of thing. Lived on my own, went broke, went penniless, lived homeless for a while, blah, blah, blah. And about the time
we're going to go back to that, because not everybody does live homeless, blah, blah, blah. But okay, go ahead.
And I had 2 nickels in my pocket that I refused to spend for between 3 and 6 months, because I didn't want to be completely broke. If I had the 2 nickels, I felt I had money.
Already the mindset training.
It really, and I was 18, and I met a mystic at 18, a guy who terrified me, because he'd always go, give me something. And I'm like, what do you want? And he'd go, just give me anything. And I go, and I panicked. I thought he wanted my body. I thought he wanted sex. I didn't know what he wanted. He terrified me. All he wanted me to do was be authentic, and to be able to give and to release. He'd go, you're living your parents' dream. You're not living yours. I go, but I'm pursuing acting. Yeah, but you're pursuing it the way your parents would have you pursue it. You've got this fall black clan. You're missing all this stuff. We'd walk down the streets, and he'd go, what's different today? And I go, different cars? What? I just didn't get where he was going with it. He terrified me. So I would creep close to him to try and learn from him, meditate with him and all this stuff. And then I would run away. It would get too dangerous, and I would run away. Around the time I was 25, I had a skydiving accident, and I got misprescribed a fatal combination of pills. Should have killed me, didn't. I survived while taking the drugs. And then, because it so screwed up my head, and I was acting very erratic, all my friends said, well, here, have a Quaalude, have some Valium, have some, Darvocet.
Oh, no.
I mean, they started giving me all sorts of pills to try and make me normal. And so then that got worse. And then I started drinking, and, the whole thing. Oh, I ended up with amnesia for a long period of time.
Amnesia, like full amnesia, and not knowing who you were?
No, I knew who I was. I just couldn't. I mean, it's like retrograde amnesia. You don't know what you've done. So you wake up the next day, you have no clue what happened. I didn't know.
Oh, you did a lot of drugs.
Drug industry. So I didn't know day to day. So, and I would go places because I knew to go places, like my acting workshops and things. And and they were like, go home, and I'm like, no, I'm here. They go home. And I lost almost all of my friends. I lost all of my friends. And I lost my career. I lost the girlfriend. I shouldn't say I lost it. I should say I drove them away, but I didn't do anything to harm anybody. I just didn't know what was happening to me. It was like a mental breakdown. I didn't know what was going on. Ultimately, I tried to kill myself and jumped out of a window on my head, and didn't work. And I was mad because I couldn't even kill myself. I was like, boy, how bad do you have to be to not be able to pull that off? And so I went cold turkey on the drugs. My sister had called and said, there's something going on with my brother. You need to get out here. So they came out. They found me surrounded by pill bottles and alcohol bottles and journals of just scribbles and scribbles and scribbles, nothing intelligent. And they, while trying to decide if they were going to put me in a psychiatric hospital or institution, I went cold turkey on the drugs. They took the distributor cap off my car, which most people don't know what that is today. But so I couldn't drive. I couldn't go anywhere. And I went cold turkey. And when I went cold turkey, and suddenly I faced what had happened, and I didn't know what had happened. And I was like, I felt really bad. So I called my girlfriend, and then my girlfriend was like, get away from me. I don't want anything to do with you. I mean, what happened? And I didn't know she'd broken up
That
with.
was the amnesia you had.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I kept pursuing a relationship with somebody who didn't want anything to do with me, and with my friends, they didn't want anything to. So I locked myself in my apartment for a minimum of 6 weeks, and I sat in a chair, and I got up to pee or go to the store to buy food, and oddly enough, somebody I'm going to be doing a workshop with soon, a mega monster in terms of skill and talent and ability. I'm just so pleased. His wife worked at the store that I used to shop at that time. But we were on the phone the other day, talked about all the people we knew back then, and how we probably had known each other but didn't know that we knew each other. So the world kind of just comes like that, right? During the time that I was in the chair, I was affirming, I was using hypnosis, I was visualizing, I was doing all these things. And mostly I was sitting there going, oh God, why did this have to happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? How long is this going to take? Why can't I get my girlfriend back? Why won't, Hollywood come knocking at my door? Why did, And about 3 weeks into it, I realized I'm asking all the wrong questions. I don't want to know why this happened. I didn't care really. I wanted to know what I could do to be better. What could I do to get my friends back? What could I do to live confidently? What could I do to get the girl back if I were going to get her back? What I needed to be able to go outside and feel like a human again. And this just snapped. Like something went off in my head, and I started to say, instead of how long will this take, I'm like, how quickly can I get out of this chair? How soon can I get out? What do I need to do? What do I need to know? What do I have to become in order to be confident so that I can live my life with joy and peace and love and help the world? And as I shifted what I was focused on, everything began to shift. And 3 or 4 weeks later, I emerged from my apartment, much like a toddler, I wasn't like, hi, I'm here. It was like, okay, let's get going. And as I did, I continued this practice. And what happened was it creates its own momentum. And through that momentum and through the change and what I had discovered, I started teaching everywhere. And I had been teaching meditation prior to that. And then I lived in an ashram for about 5 years afterwards. And so between teaching meditation and teaching hypnosis and teaching business people how to do all these things, I shared what I had learned, and then NLP. And so it all became about how do you transform and how do you direct your mind in a way and your spirit in a way that gets you the biggest movement for the least amount of effort, essentially.
Wow. Rex, first of all, I want to give honor to the story that you just shared. You shared a story of the fact that you almost lost your life because of things. You tried to lose your life,
Yeah.
and you're still here. And then when you got to that point, you realize, why am I still here? You started clawing your way out of it. That is it's a vulnerable story. It's a powerful story. And the reason being is because a lot of people don't realize that masters like you have had pasts like this. I don't understand. Have you noticed that, Rex?
Well, not only that, I mean, it happened, major crises in my life have happened at least 2 more times. I haven't talked about them publicly, really. I mean, I do in workshops and things, but
Right. You don't want to lead with that all the time. So,
well, I mean, it's like, here's the thing. Why do we have problems? We're born. Okay. I mean, how else can you answer it? And sometimes you have major problems and sometimes you have minor problems. So get over it. I mean, in other words, I've lost all my money a couple of times. I've lost, everything a couple of times. I've nearly died more than once. So, it just is what it is. And what I discovered more than anything is learn to be grateful and learn to celebrate everything, because anything and everything is what you make of it. And that's the choice that you and I have.
yes.
And most people don't understand that.
Right. I don't know if someone can get there without having some help, to tell you the truth, because we have so much programming that's going on in our brains, correct? Which brings me to my question here.
Sure.
We saw in the beginning of the video that you are an NLP master instructor.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people that say that they teach NLP, that they've been studying NLP. What makes the difference between a master NLP trainer, master NLP instructor? Could you give us a little clarification to this? Because you speak widely different than any other NLP trainer I've had in a more advanced sense.
Yeah, experience. I mean, what's the difference between, a fast food breakfast and one that somebody takes a long time to prepare and serve, and that is just absolutely incredible, or a feast? It is experience. What I brought to neurolinguistic programming was a background from learning and accelerated learning and meditation and acting and hypnosis and all these different things. What typically happens today is somebody goes into a seminar and they count heads and go, oh, I could make a living doing this. This is cool. Or they like the idea of standing up in front of a room or being in a Zoom thing or something. And instead of going through everything that's required in order to get really good, they fast track it. And I can tell, I mean, it's not as easily today, but back in the late 70s, early 80s, 90s, I could tell where anyone was trained. They came from this school, this person, that person, anywhere in the world. I could tell because I knew what they were teaching, because there were, let's say there were 20 of us, right? I mean, there were more, but there were 20, let's say big fish, and you could get to know their style and you could know what their preferences were and things. When the internet came along, it exploded. Anyone that has read a book essentially calls themselves a trainer or a master practitioner. Many of them have never stepped inside an NLP program. I know people personally who say they're practitioners and master practitioners and trainers, and they've never taken a program. But that aside, in all different areas, not just NLP, but in all different areas.
Yeah.
But that aside, what happens is I can tell today who knows the law of attraction by who they quote, by who they attribute the quote to. Because they say, well, Tony says this, but Tony didn't say it. Somebody said it before Tony, and somebody before Jim Rohn said it. Somebody said it before that person said it. So if you don't understand, if you haven't been around the block, if you don't have the experience, if you haven't made a study of it and you just learned it in a seminar room and then you go out and repeat what the seminar trainer said, you may be repeating a lot of errors. You may be repeating a lot of mistakes. You're gonna only be as good essentially as your trainer in that case. My goal is that every single one of my students surpass me in the same way that I want my kids to surpass me. I want them to live longer than me. I want them to be richer than me. I want them to have a better life than I want the best. And my students, what I'm really happy to say, and I don't know that it's all of them, I'm sure there's some dropouts, but all of the students, I mean, many of them stay in touch with me. People who we've had, especially the ones who went full boat with me. They went through a lot of different training. Somebody who came in and did one workshop, maybe no, but I mean, the other people, we created a family 30, 40 years ago, and we're still connected.
Wow.
They're responsible for millions, maybe billions of dollars in terms of monetary, what they've accomplished on their own. But more than that, they've created happy lives wherever they go. They've had good relationships. They've spawned lots of kids. They're doing what they did. They got over whatever they were doing. And I'm a little bit of a part of that. They came to me for training, or they came to me for coaching or something. And my legacy is the people who have come through me.
I loved how you said that, because you said you can really tell who a person truly learned from by who they quote.
Right.
And I've known a lot of people, like one of your students who is making comments here, Sandra Horton. She uses a lot of your words. She quotes from you. A lot of us talk about your book, Life on Your Terms. I truly believe that book, Rex, is going to be a classic. But before we move on with that, I'd like to answer some of these questions. First of all, Monty Anthony asked a couple of questions. This is the second one he asked. Would you mind answering it? What are your 3 greatest strengths, Rex?
I take 100% responsibility for anything I create, good or bad, right or wrong. I'm the one who's responsible. I'm the one who's accountable. I might inadvertently say, oh, the bank or this or the other thing, but I'm the one who made the choice. I'm the one who made the decision. So first off, it's responsibility. Second, or the buck stops here. Second, I've done everything I can to learn how to manage my mindset, manage my feelings, and manage my behaviors, and do so with integrity, honesty, and to walk my talk. So responsibility, management, self-management or self-mastery, and integrity, to walk it, to be it, not to just know about it. not to, and hey, I have feet of clay. I screw up all the time. I'm a human like anyone else, but the thing that I've learned is that your mind, how you view anything is how you view everything. We say how you do anything is how you do everything, but how you view anything is how you view everything. If you consider everything a blessing, then everything will be a blessing. Hence, it's why I always say celebrate everything, because what's the alternative? Yeah, it's either be positive or be not positive. So what's the alternative to not being positive? I choose to live happy. Now, but here's one last thing in all that. Managing your thoughts is just one thing. There's an area outside of your thinking that is then the thinking is the thinking for rich, the Napoleon Hill, but the whole the realm of meditation and transformation. I'm one who believes in transference, transmutation, transcendence. So thinking is only part of it. The other is being able to let go, release, and live. Observing with awareness. Nowadays, there's a buzzword called mindfulness, but ideally to live meditatively as opposed to living in our heads.
I loved those points that you made. In fact, Dame Doria Cordova, she attributes you as a person who can really help a person clear that clutter in not only their minds, but the clutter in their programming, the clutter that's holding them back. She often attributes that to you. And where you're saying things are going, so many of us can relate. I love how Shmiko Cole says, all of his students highly edify and stayed connected. That speaks volumes to training, powerful testimony. This is why you're saying that you're not worried. You're not worried that people have taken some of your works and added it to theirs, because those who truly learn from you are thriving. And those are the individuals who are edifying you. I think that's just beautiful. I want to ask you one more question by one of our viewers here, Anthony Villanova. We haven't asked this question. It came out earlier. What energizes you, Rex, the most in your work / mission? Can you answer that?
Yeah, people are being transformed. People are changing. I firmly, I call it a belief, because we all talk differently, but for me, the world is one organism. The universe, everything in it, all of us, you and I, we're all one. We're all source. We're all God. If God is omniscient, omnipresent, and all powerful and all knowing, then there's no place anywhere that there isn't God, or at least that kind of divine energy. So all of us are divine. All of us are that energy. And most of us just don't know that. So I use the analogy. It's not a perfect one. But if you take a drop of water out of the ocean and you put it on your tabletop, that whole ocean water is right there in your tabletop. It's just in a drop. It's not less the ocean. It's just not all of the ocean, but it's still ocean. So imagine a mirror, and you take the mirror and you smash it on the table. All those little charts and all that little dust is all what we are as people and species and everything else, right? We're still all the mirror. We didn't stop being the mirror because it broke. We're still the mirror. And guess what? All those little particles reflect. We mirror each other, but we're one thing. We are consciousness. So my mission, what energizes me is when people discover their authentic self, when they release, when they let go, when they get over some hurdle, that some thought, for 40 years I've said, what is it that stops most people? It's a thought. It's a mental packet of energy. And what is that little mental packet of energy does? Electrochemical, so it squirts hormones. And so depending on whether it's positive or negative thought, you either have good hormones or not so good hormones. So you either have feeling really wonderful or you have stress. And so if people are stressed financially, in their relationships, with their health, with their happiness quotient, with their emotions, with their whatever it might be, they can learn to transform that and move beyond that, and in a way that would grab them and excite them and delight them in ways that they can't even imagine what that would be like right now. So that's what energizes me.
The way you deliver that not only is with mastery, but the warmth that you exude from it. Although I know people who work with you really want to work. They want to roll up their sleeves and they want to make changes. And I really wanted to point that out about you, Rex, because you have this flavor about you that is so approachable. And those who truly want to find a great mentor and coach always tend to mention about Rex Sikes. They kind of circle around you. They read some of your blogs. They buy your book and such. but I can see why a lot of people really want to get to know you. You know your journey, you know what you're teaching, and you know what you know. And I think it's beautiful. What I think is interesting is how you focus on transference, transmutation, all of those aspects of changing one form of matter into another. And that's exactly what the Los Angeles Tribune does. I was thinking, Rex, I wanted to speak a little more about the Los Angeles Tribune, if I may. So the Los Angeles Tribune has taken an illustrious history. And through Mo Ruck, the CEO and the COO, Dr. Natalie Forrest, they are transforming this platform into something that is really speaking to the future. A place for training, a place for discussion, a place for dialogue, and a place for unity. But don't take my word for it. Why don't we learn a little more about the Los Angeles Tribune?
Hello and welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune. Since 1886, our name has been a part of the world of journalism. We have earned a reputation for being a publication that practices integrity, authenticity, and responsibility. For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
And we're back. Hi. We are at Ignite Your Essence on the Los Angeles Tribune platform with the great Rex Steven Sikes. And we are learning about all things Rex, which happens to be his talk show. If you haven't caught it, make sure you go onto the Los Angeles Tribune platforms and watch it. It can also be seen, like this show, on Roku TV. So there's no excuse not to catch all things Rex. Now,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just
cool,
grateful
of course.
to the LA Tribune for the show, for the opportunity to do the show, and it's a blast to be able to bring, as you do, different guests to the platform to introduce them. Some people don't know, and some they're quite familiar with, and share that with people. So thank you.
You're welcome. It really is a gracious platform, Rex. And I truly believe that likes attracts like. And we were talking about your journey. We were talking about the differences between how you teach and with NLP, and how people get a little confused about coaching and life and such. But the one thing that's so unique about you, Rex, is there's always a taste of your flavor of how things go. And I'd like to focus a little more on that. Well, a lot of people, as you know, we have a growing audience and they seem to really like what you have to say. And it's because of the fact that you come real, you come authentic. And you mentioned that you met your first mystic who said, give me something, right?
Yeah.
So can you give us something as to where you feel your authentic path is taking you as you move forward with your career and your life?
Yeah, see, I'm not for everybody. I mean, I am for those people who are attracted to me, like, moths to flame. If they feel a simpatico, if they feel a resonance with me, then let's connect. I've done everything in my life to, some people are very power oriented. They want to be on the platform and they seem unapproachable, and I'm like the poor man's Tony Robbins. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to stand in front of cars and mansions and jets and all that stuff. I want to be the guy that you can walk up to and go, "Hi, how you doing?" And I go, "Cool. Want to have a cup of coffee?" Absolutely. I want to be approachable. I want people to be able to know that transformation doesn't have to be high powered. You don't need massive action. You don't have to do all the kinds of things that everybody thinks you have to do. What happened in our industry, if you want to call it, is this explosion again with the internet of books and this and that, and people will say, you need
bombarded.
Oh,
Yes.
totally. I mean, there's so much overwhelming amounts of information that what happens is that someone will say, I've got the next 57 steps that you need to take in order to transform your life. But you're never going to do 57 steps if you can't do 3 or 4. I want to make it 3 or 4. I want to make it 2 or 1. In other words, I want transformation because it's simple. It's so simple to transform. Not always easy. And the caveat with that is it's easy if you think it is, and it may not be as easy as you hope it is, but it's easier than it will be if you think it's hard. So your mindset plays into this. So what I try and do is I try and cut through all the BS. I try and demythify things. I try and tell people exactly what they're going to expect or get, and with me, they're going to get who I am, and I'm just this guy, and I've got some cool things, right? So come and let's sit down by a river somewhere and let's talk about it, except usually it's in a seminar room or at Zoom. But, I have met more fascinating people, life transforming people sitting on a bench somewhere with a guy who looked like a bum than I have in seminar rooms. And believe me, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to be in seminar rooms, and they're all fine. But what happens is if they don't structure the seminar correctly, and so many people don't, you leave the seminar and a week later, you don't remember 90% of it. College statistics are this. You spend 4 to 6 years, maybe more in college now. You spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. By the time you graduate, 6 months after you graduate, 80% of everything you learned in college is forgotten.
Do you think it's ever accessed, like in the subconscious, or you think it's totally not absorbed?
But everything is in the subconscious. True. I mean, that they have access to it, but the point is that they don't know they have access to it. They walk out there, they're not. That's not
how their mind. They don't know how to access it. They need to learn that.
How to access it. And they're not taught how to unpack things, and they're not taught how to be consistent. They go to these workshops and they get pumped up and they feel really good, and then they walk out and they encounter the everyday world, and it's not the same. And they don't have the tools or the skills or the experience, which is the key, in knowing what to do when they hit the real world, and I don't call it the real world, how we use that. That's the outer world of everybody else. They're inside a seminar room with all like-minded people, and then they come out and they go to their families, their friends, and their coworkers, and their boss, and the persons at the coffee shops and all that.
Everyone.
And you run out of, well, that's why people set all sorts of resolutions on New Year's Day, but 3 weeks later, they're not keeping any of them. You can, and that's the thing that I've always focused on is how do you help people get through this and transform, and hence why I wrote the book. And by the way, when I just want to tie back to what you said, there are a lot of quotes in that book, and they're the people who actually said it first, for the most part, as most as I can check.
Actually, those are the books that I love. They are the true classics that survive because they're threading together where this knowledge came from. I believe that people feel like they won't have as much authority if they don't speak to their predecessors or speak to their contemporaries of where they gathered this knowledge. But in reality, I truly believe it's one of the most powerful things. And that's what makes you one of the most powerful trainers that I've ever come across. But giving that in mind, let's talk a little more about how the mind works, because I love how you teach this, Rex. When we talk about the subconscious and we talk about retraining, can a person, you see a huge trend of programs or 20 days to do this, 20 days to do that, to the point where I'm wondering if that is a little bit of a marketing ploy. Can somebody actually shift in 20 days like they're promising?
You could change like that, but not everybody does, and not everybody will. And if that's what you're holding out for, you may be disappointed. Or you may go, I really wanted to change like that, but what happened was I learned that it was better to just change through time. Anything is possible.
The journey.
Right. But I mean, anything is possible. Hence the Henry Ford quote, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're correct. Scrooge, although fictitious, transformed overnight, visited by the three ghosts, got terrified about the past, terrified about the future, realized that the present sucks, came out the next day going, hello, Merry Christmas, everybody, after years of being a Scrooge. So it is possible, but the thing is that's what everybody wants. And that's the promise, the marketing promise. We'll get it to you in 3 days, 5 days. Here's the 5, the 15, the 20. Here's my thinking on this. And it's based on, I've been doing this. I mean, if you caught since a kid, I've been doing it, what now? 60 years. I mean, if you count that I was 6, because I'm 66. So I got another 60 some years to go, or no, 80 years to go. If you go with Buckminster Fuller, I prefer to go with the stuff I used to talk about in my programs back in the 90s, which they found rats that they gave certain vitamins and things to, and they kept them alive for 12 years, which is the equivalent of living 200,000 years. And I was like, wow, how would you like to live 200,000 years? And people would go, no way, you got to sleep sometime. And I'm going, what, are you kidding? You have the opportunity to be alive for 200,000 years and you want to go to, oh man, life is hard. I'm like, this is the point. If somebody said, I can extend your life for another 50 years, do you want it? And people go, no, because they're not living a happy, fulfilled life. You know, and the people who are sometimes live life and then leave too soon. You know, they're out too quickly. So,
so how does somebody know that they're on they want to change, Rex? They want to say, a lot of people are motivated by wanting to retool to make more money, or they want to get better. They want to not repeat certain habits so they don't attract the certain results. What do they do? How do they find someone like yourself? I mean, what is the first step?
I did an entire workshop where we almost didn't talk. People came and just sat and sang together. We just sat quietly. You know, it was about
Did people know it was going to be quiet?
They didn't know it'd be that quiet. They just knew that they were coming. And I'm like, you're already the change that you're seeking. So let's just embrace that. And they're like, you know, I mean, it's just, you know, but boy, were they transformed by the time it was over, because they sat, they got quiet. They were able to see what was going on in their mind, and the things that they latch onto that were problems suddenly became no longer problems. So let me backstep it a little bit in this regard. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything that ever has been or will be already exists. It's already there. Its energy can't be created or destroyed. It's only transformed. So when the rocket ships that are going to the outer edges of the universe right now, you know, way out these space forces, they existed when the Big Bang happened. You know, all the materials necessary to make them existed. Maybe not in the form. Plastics we had to learn how to manufacture plastics or rubbers or different things and put things together and make computers. But ultimately, we did that. And that's what consciousness does. Consciousness evolves. And the computer metaphor that a lot of people use about the brain is okay, but we're not computers and we're not cars. You know, we're not machines. Our brain is more like a jungle. It's a thriving series of processes. By the way, there's no person in your head, in your subconscious mind. There's electrochemical processes that are reliable, but they're living, because you're living. You're like I said, you're like a garden. You nurture it, you flourish, you deprive it from nutrients, and you wither. Back in the 80s, when we were doing this, there was no such thing as neuroplasticity. The concept was there because it's existed since ancient times, but nobody had that word until somebody coined the word, you know. And so then the coined word, like mindfulness or neuroplasticity, suddenly become buzzwords for things that have been happening from the dawn of humankind. And all the neuroscience talk that you hear about, like the latest neuroscience stuff and all this kind of stuff, and you need this and you need that, and you have to find this secret to unlock it. It's really marketing. I mean, I hate to say it, it's marketing. I mean, you know, but it is, because that what neuroscience has been doing more than anything else is verifying what has been around for thousands of years. And if you're honest, we aren't discovering anything new. We're just affirming what we already know is true, but never use.
Through the great scientific process. But you're right. It's just reaffirming what humankind knew. Right. What's interesting, though, is another part of neuroscience, because it gets funded, is how to manipulate consumers.
Yep.
And how to manipulate thinking at a very young age so that you're more pliable, really banking on that neuroplasticity. What do you speak for those people who say, hey, I don't want to always be programmed. I want to have my choice. What do I do?
Well, that's why I'm on the planet. I mean, that's what I think my mission is to help people understand that. But understand this: conditioning, it happens from the womb on, you know, and so we start off, becoming the spark of life and this fetus, and we're affected by the mother and the sounds and the experience and the environment that the mother lives in, and the father or the caregivers, and then we're now a separate human being, so to speak, and whoever our primary caretakers are, we pick up from them like a sponge. We're literally hypnotized at that point to accept a lot of what everybody does. We by the time, studies will say that by the time you're 6 years old, your personality is fixed, so that if you're 40 or 50, if you were to know the person at 6 and at 40 or 50 or 60, it's the same person. The personality is fixed. Yeah, yes and no. Your conditioned is was why Aristotle said, "Show me a 7-year-old boy, and I'll show you the adult." Because by the time you're conditioned, by the time you're 7, almost all of your principal values and everything that you're going to live with are conditioned. But the conditioning doesn't stop there. You then go to school, you go to high school, you go to college, you then turn on your radio, you have a political affiliation or religious affiliation, a coffee click. You're constantly being programmed. And Edwin Bernays, the father of public relations, was really sought by corporations to separate people from their dollars by telling them, hey, you're all broken. You got smelly pits, you got yellow teeth, you got flaky hair. You need
buy these products.
Well, but the same thing happens in the personal development industry.
Aha.
I mean,
one of the catchphrases is imposter syndrome. That seemed to be a big clickable title.
You're always looking for something else that you're broken.
Something that's wrong with you, so that you
whether it's in the self-help field or psychology or wherever it is, something's wrong with you and you need to be fixed. And what I keep telling people is you don't need to be fixed, and you don't need massive overhauls. In some cases, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Some people need to have that breakthrough, but they don't necessarily need to be broken. Correct.
Right. And they don't have to go to seminar after seminar after seminar after seminar after seminar, to try and find it, because there are people who become seminar junkies because they never feel like they've finished. They don't feel like they've got the transformation. They're still in search of something to complete them. And what you need to know is you're already complete. You have to discover that. I want to help you discover that. I want to help you take all these layers of crap off. I use the analogy of, imagine walking around your present life right now with every piece of clothing you've ever had in your life. It'd be pretty hard to move, don't you think?
Clunky, absolutely. I'd be uncomfortable.
But that's what we do. We carry all these memories and disappointments and sorrows and frustrations and angers and good memories. Some people live in the past, like the good old days are gone and I'll never recapture those. And others are like, those days were horrible and I'll never be better. I mean, and it's really a thought. And you've got an industry to tell you you're broken, you need pills, you need medicine, you need something. Whole concentrated billions of dollars are spent to get you into different practices. And then you have the self-help industry that does the same thing. And there's a certain,
because it works.
Well, it does work. And there is a certain truth to this. And that is, if you do nothing, you'll be the same. If that's okay, that's okay. If you don't want to change.
That's why no one has a guilty conscience who uses this, because they feel if we can get a little change, good.
Well, there were some ads that I'd see recently on social media going, 2022 will be just like 2020. If you don't do something now, your life will be doomed. And I'm like, oh, come on. It could, sure, but come on. But here's the thing. Some people have to be yelled at. You know what? I did what I did until it broke down and I needed help. And thank God I found the help. I tried to kill myself, tried to do all these things. But when it came to it, I had to lock myself away. I had to get inside myself and find out who was there, and then I came out and then I started sharing that. But yes, then I also went to an ashram. I meditated, I did workshops, I did all sorts of other things to continue to improve myself. But the point is, I want to be like Jesus. Come unto me, all who are heavy burdened, and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. I don't want you to, to spend the rest of your life chasing something. I want you to be fulfilled. I want my kids to be fulfilled. I want you to find what you're passionate about and live it. I want you to live your purpose. I want you to take whatever you want to take, whether it's financial skills or NLP skills or law of attraction skills or, that manifesting and all that kind of stuff, and put it into practice and make your life wonderful.
Yes. Put it to action.
And I've always said this, and I don't like the analogy because it's not perfect, but I'm like a quarterback. My goal is to pass you the ball or to hand the ball to you so that you score. You run it in, you get the touchdown, you get the score. It's collaborative, sure, but you did it. And yes, I gave it to you. So I've released it. It's not mine anymore. Now you do what you will with it.
I love that about that, because not I'm going to have to be honest, not all mentors and coaches have that mindset. And granted, sometimes there is a focus and there's a focus of what that person wants to think about. But I wanted to speak to what you shared about how that knowledge and that journey, you want them to go within.
Right.
And how your own, because your own transformation happened there. In fact, the most profound transformations happen within.
Oh, God.
And the way you said it was so beautiful when you said about sitting in that one seminar that you taught and everybody was quiet.
Right.
And it made me think about a retreat that I did, a Vipassana retreat. And then those of you who are listening, Vipassana is known to be the original form of meditation that the original Buddha had created. And you sit there. Modern day descriptions, and I think it's a little true, Rex, and maybe you can speak to this. They call it meditation boot camp because you literally are stuck with yourself, and what you're talking about, because certainly that's Buddhism is a philosophy, and so but they talk about, hey, there's different ways. You don't have to just do this way. And what you're talking about, how you're teaching people, that they can make that shift a little faster. Sometimes we need to be taken away for a long time with just ourselves, but sometimes you can take us gently. So is that the difference between throwing us the ball and then handing us the ball? Is that what you're talking about? You adjust to that?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. If somebody comes to you and they want to change, you may have all sorts of answers and all sorts of stuff, but they're the one who wants to change. So you have to help them change. And what happens for a lot of people is they'll say, here, do this, but it doesn't have anything to do with what the person wants or what the person actually needs. It's just what, somebody who's done a workshop knows, And so one of the most profound things that I did, and then I'll answer the question, was I spent 6 weeks in the desert in silence. And I've done this a couple of times, but where, no media, no nothing, just out there kind of like doing my thing. And the first couple of days, the first time I did it, I just wanted to scream, I just wanted to say something because, all this thought, all this energy is going on. And then yet after a while, suddenly that gives way. And there's this energy, this presence that arises in silence. When I then had to go back into the world to resume my career in acting and things like that, I didn't want to talk. It was really, really difficult to even begin to utter words because the energy that had been released was so profound. And I lived that way at that time in the early 80s, for like 6 weeks in silence. I mean, I don't know why I always do things in 6 weeks. It's really kind of a funny thing, but I do a lot of them. And the point is so when it comes to, I said this the other day somewhere, you can't, what you tried to describe Vipassana, and it's impossible. You can write a book about it, you can teach a seminar on it, and you can put out an audio cassette on it, and you can give all the information. But what the person really needs is the experience of Vipassana. They need the experience of awakening. They need the experiences of meditation, of releasing and relaxing. So all of my programs have always been very much experiential. They've been come in, play, because as a child you learn to play.
Yeah.
You want to come. I mean, there are those people who want to boot camp it. They want to go treat me like a Marine, and break me down. Most people don't want that. Most people want to have an experience that contributes to them in a way.
Some companies have been sued doing that too. Let's be honest.
That is true too.
But the experiential that you're talking about, could you explain to us how you teach an experiential seminar? Because we've learned that that's whole brain learning. And I think this is a concept that our audience would be so interested in understanding why that works so quickly.
Well, I mean, there's a number of things. Like right now, we have the NLP, the Ultimate NLP Home Study course, and people are enrolled in that now, and they're enrolling, and then we're taking applications at this time, and that's a very experiential course. Now, the online version has the auditory component of the workshop. So you hear it, then you've got a manual, you get to do the exercises, those are explained and then assigned. And then we have live support and Zoom meetings because of where we are in the world, as opposed to being in a seminar room or in a retreat center somewhere. But the point is that you learn more as a child playing with a stick or watching a butterfly or chasing something, playing games and doing things than you did really sitting inside school, being forced to memorize things. And this is why college is so devoid of having people work and remember what they learned and then work in their chosen fields, because it's information based. So think about this. It's like History 101, and you do all this stuff and you read all that, and then you have to study for the exam, and then on the exam you get true or false, you get essay, you get multiple choice, some of those things, and then you're done, right? You've done the test. Well, if you're really good at taking tests, you don't even need to know the material. You're just good at taking exams. So
Yes.
you pass. And if you don't know the material and you didn't learn it and you're really bad, then you fail, right? What do they do? What do they do when they're done with the test? They move on to the next module. They don't go back and go, well, here's what you didn't do right, and here's how we correct it, and let's make these adjustments so that you can move forward. They go, okay, now next, and they go into this next module. And this is how you go through grade school and junior high, well, middle school now, and high school.
It gets worse the more advanced education you get.
There are workshops now. You go into a seminar and all they do is go, what did I say?
To teach people how to listen.
But I mean, they go, in order to change, you need to stand on your head. How do you change? Stand on your head. Yeah. So people walk out, they're going, stand on your head, but they haven't stood on their head necessarily.
No.
And so if they don't have the experience of standing on their head, but they only have it as a knowledge, information never changes you. Applied information can change you. Put it to work, put it to use. The proper fruit of knowledge is application and work. And the more you do, here's the cool part, the more you do, the more you can do. And the more you can do, the easier it becomes. And the easier it becomes, the more you can do. So it builds on itself and you create momentum. Think of it this way. If your car is on the ground, in neutral, on a flat surface, you can push it and take a little bit of effort, a little more effort to get it going, pushing it. But once it gets going, you can pretty much just put your hand on it because it'll have its own momentum. And that's a law of physics. An object in motion will tend to stay in motion unless a greater force acts on it to stop it, or a body at rest will stay at rest, and thus a greater force. So your push is a little bit greater force than gravity at that moment. And then once it's moving, that momentum is greater than, so if you were on a hill and the car were coming down a hill, you'd have to get out of the way because the momentum would be really strong.
Right.
Or you'd be chasing your car down the hill or whatever, however you think about it. So the point is you create a momentum for change inside yourself and you develop the habits for change. My goal is to have people, because it's all your whole, there's lots of books on habits, but you're trading habits. When you said 20 days, can you do it in 20 days? Can you do it in a seminar? The answer is sure, you could, but it's more likely that it'll take you 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, 2 years, something like that. Mm-hmm. And if you know what you're getting into in advance and you know how to correctly repeat the correct things consistently for long enough, you'll make it a habit. When you make it a habit, then it becomes a reliable habit. It becomes a skill. It's automatic. You don't have to think about it anymore. It's like how you open a door. You don't have to think about opening a door. You don't have to learn how to open. Occasionally you come across a door that's really difficult, but other than that, you know how to open a door, or sit on a chair, or use a fork, or eat a meal. You don't have to learn that all over again.
I believe that in neuroscience, before it was even called neuroscience, but those who studied the mind, in academically, I should say, they used to say it took 2 weeks to create a habit or to enact change. And now it's 67 days. I think 66, Oxford University did a huge study, and it is actually accurate of where the brain is today.
Right.
I believe it's because of the way technology is, how much information is at us. It takes a lot longer to go within. What do you have to say? What advice do you get to people where they realize, wow, there is so much going on that it literally takes me a lot longer, like you said, to get that change? What would be the first steps we can try to do to get to that point?
Well, even back in the early days, I used to say it takes 21 days to begin to make something a habit, which I think is more accurate. I think they would argue the same thing today, that it's almost 66 days for it to become a habit or begin to become a habit. But I agree. I think that's an excellent point. There's so much distraction. There's so much deflection. There's so many other things that people do that they're not focused. Life was simpler 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 100 years ago, 300 years ago. Much, much simpler, easier to do because you didn't have that many things to do. You didn't come home and watch 12 hours of TV before you went to bed, and have the internet and have your phones, and and the other thing was and I'm a victim of this too. I refused to get a phone for the longest time because all of my phone numbers were in my head. I did keep phone books, but I kept all the numbers in my head and addresses, and my meetings, my calendar was in my head. And when I got a phone and I started putting things into the phone, guess what talent went away? My ability to remember those things, because I didn't continue the practice, and if you don't use it, it's a use it or lose it phenomenon. So if you don't use it, it atrophies. If you sit on a chair the whole time and you don't use your muscles will atrophy. So if you're not keeping something alive, what is it going to do? It's going to die. It's going to wither. So
wow. You just brought it full circle, because you said it takes motion. It takes movement. Quit going to all of these seminars all the time. Start doing something. Move forward.
Well, and I mean, okay, so I'm in this business. I want people to come to me. I want them to come and do my programs and my seminars, but I don't want to have to beg you to come, and I don't want to have to scare you into it to come. If you want to come. You're going to learn something incredible, and you're going to transform your life to the extent that you're willing to transform your life. And if it's the beginning, it's the beginning, and if it goes further than that, goes further than that. I just want to be honest and legitimate. There's value in programs, and certainly I'm not the only person in the world, but I want to give it to anyone and everyone who comes. I want to be honest and legitimate, and like I said, demythify things, because there's so much BS that's going on today. And if you don't know what to look for, you're like, and
that's why I'm asking so many questions. How do we look for you? How do we find people like you? Because there is a lot out there, and people are learning from each other who,
Well, I do think you want somebody, you do want somebody who you resonate with, and you do want somebody who that's going to bother us forever. That's the office phone, and then they're going to leave a message, I'm sure. I might mute my mic and let you talk, but the thing is that you want. Go ahead. You can say something. I'll come back to it, because they're gonna.
Oh, okay.
A second, and I'll take care of the phone. I'll just hang it up.
Oh.
There goes the message, but I got to go do it.
All right. Well, what we're going to do is we'll take you off just for a second. This is a live show, and I'm going to speak here. I'm going to recap everyone. We have Rex Steven Sikes, as you know, and I can see quite a few of you viewers are still sticking along and listening, because it is riveting, isn't it? To have somebody come with so much experience, to have so much humility about how we learn. He's an he empowers people. And that is really something that I truly feel, that if you are looking for someone who is a mentor or a coach or a trainer, that you want to find somebody who truly has those qualities to empower others, which means that they want you to eventually do this without them. And that's where I feel that is a sweet spot for Rex Sikes. Oh, we're going to bring him back on. Hello, Rex, you're back.
Okay.
Rex, while you're here, I want to ask you the big question that we ask everyone here on Ignite Your Essence, because this is something that we truly want every guest to tell us your take. How do we make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without ecological damage or disadvantage to anyone? Rex, what is your answer?
Wow.
It's a big one.
Well, but there are multiple answers, but if I cut to the chase, and it may or may not make sense, and it may not give, like, because some people say, well, if you put your money here, then you could this program or that. But love, if you love yourself enough, you'll love other people too.
Oh, you're speaking to my heart. Because what does love prompt a person to do in your eyes, Rex?
Accept, allow, receive, and give. It is. If you go to the Bible, I mean, but there's other scriptures, but it's just the greatest commandment is to love one another as I have loved you, or to love God with your whole heart and then love others. Love is so transformative. It's willing to forgive. It's willing to accept. It's willing to include. It's not exclusive. You don't go, I love. I mean, we as humans we may, but you don't. You technically you don't go, I don't love them, but I love these people. And yet, if we started realizing, it was 1983, and I was sitting in a mall, and I'd like to think I coined it, but I'm sure I didn't. But I was sitting in a mall, and I was looking at people, and I was new to the town, and I was sitting there watching people walk, and I looked at how they tended to avoid each other. You know, they would see and do this thing as they got close to each other, and the thought occurred to me at the time that a friend is somebody that you hadn't met yet, you know, right? And I thought, in the proper context, all these people in the proper circumstance, like at a party where everybody's being introduced, they might all be friends, but right now they're strangers, and they're not, because they're strangers, they don't embrace each other, they don't acknowledge each other, you know. And so, but love takes energy, you know, and so does acknowledging people. If you were to walk down the street of Manhattan going hello, hello, hello to everybody you passed, you'd probably be exhausted in a fair amount of time, you know. So, but the thing is that it's the little things we do. We always try to think about the big stuff, like how do we get all the money to do this big thing?
The big gestures.
Right. But just start small. Be kind to your child, be kind to your spouse, be kind to the next door neighbor, do something for somebody, buy somebody a cup of coffee, do the kind of little things, you know, feed it forward, and you make your little world better. One of my favorite sayings is, you can light a million candles off of just one candle, but that candle must be lit first.
Yes.
And that's what love does for us, you know, and it's
wow. And we did not pay Rex to say this, because that's what the essence of Ignite Your Essence is about, is to take these candles, like you, Rex, every guest, you are a candle, and we're igniting people. And while we're igniting you, we want to keep you lit, which is why we have our sister project, Leaders in Transformation, of which you have an article. You're a big contributor to even our initial article. We're having our debut, and we're so excited to have you with us, because we want to keep everyone lit with this information. Like you said, people can get information and then they walk away. In a few weeks, they forget. You drop some knowledge here, which is why the beginning of our show, we drop at 90 degrees precession, as Buckminster Fuller says. The diamond, you are the diamond, woo, blowing up in every hair. And I'm seeing Sandra Horton talking about her mantra, ignite the flames of self with love.
Yeah, very cool.
Wow, that's beautiful.
I haven't been able to pay attention to the chat room while we're talking. So, I mean,
I've noticed. We wanted to focus on you, Rex. You always have to pay attention to the chat when you are actually a talk show host. But we wanted to treat the audience with getting to know you as a person. You're such a gracious talk show host. Whenever you bring these real luminaries themselves of individuals, and you give them so much time to present, and you give them this beautiful platform, but yet these people wouldn't be drawn to you. They wouldn't even be on your show if you didn't have the mastery that you have. And that's why we wanted to make sure and Ignite Your Essence that we spoke to that part. I wanted to remind everyone, I took myself off here. It's a live show. I wanted to remind everyone to please go to rexsikes.com to learn more about how to stay in touch with Rex, get in touch with his platforms, understand, and if by very least, at least take in the information that he has compiled with over 40 years of experience. Here at Ignite Your Essence, we really want to ignite you. We want to ignite you into developing into the higher self and the highest expression of yourself. And we are so thankful, as Rex said, to be able to do this on the Los Angeles Tribune platform. But while I'm at it, I want to talk to you about our sister project, which will be launching very soon. And that is our magazine, Leaders in Transformation, where we were featuring not only the household names in transformation, but also the up and coming, the next generation, the time, because you, my friends, are the leaders that we feel the world needs. I also want to remind you to please stay in touch, of course, with Los Angeles Tribune social media through Facebook, Instagram, as well as LinkedIn and YouTube, and also Ignite Your Essence. Join us on all of those platforms as well: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. I may be missing a few here. And the reason being is because we want to connect with you, and we want to find out exactly what the type of leaders that you would like to see as well. We are growing, and we want to grow with you. And with that, I want to bring up Rex back, because Rex, I really wanted to thank you so much. And I wanted to first tell the audience to remind you to please always find a reason to smile. Never end your day without this. And Rex, would you like to close out the room and give your message to the audience?
Wow. Yeah, sure. But you do such an amazing job, and it's so wonderful. And been so wonderful being here with you. I truly appreciate the opportunity. And I just extend the invite to people to join me in my programs, because I do want to make it simple, and I do want to have you transform, and I know that you will. And with that in mind, if you don't mind me just sharing, rexsikes.com/book that went past on the crawl, a little their banner there. If you got my book from Amazon, you take the receipt number, put it in at that website, and I'll give you a $497 training on mastery, absolutely no charge. It's my gift to you. And some of the stuff that we talked about whole brain learning and stuff is in that program. And it's a short program, but it's a powerful program. And I want you to have it. So if you've got the book, the soft cover, hardcover book that you got, go and get that program. And that training is called the Mastery Loop, right there at rexsikes.com/book. And I hope I see you around. Life is oh, you got the book. That's very cool. Life
Continue on there.
life is life is think of it this way: whether you reincarnate or you're here one time, this experience that you're having right now is the experience that you're having right now. And maybe there are others and all sorts of stuff is going on, but this is the one you're aware of. Make it fabulous. Fill it with love, with joy, with peace, with friends, with fun. Don't get to be 60, 70, 80 years old and go, life passed me by and I have all these regrets. Live it fully, because you absolutely can. It doesn't matter where you come from, what walk of life you're in, what your background was or your past is. You can transform, and you can have an absolutely delightful experience now and forever in your future. And that's the promise that we're all here with, is that you can transform. So do it, and then claim it and own it, and you'll surprise yourself. You can't even imagine how incredible it will be at this moment. But you could look back 30, 60, 90 days from now or a year from now and go, wow, life is grand.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful closing statement. Well, you heard it. That was Rex Sikes. And I want to remind everybody to stick around for the credits, because you'll see other ways that you can stay lit on Ignite Your Essence. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next time. Bye.